today is a different sermon. It's an important one. And it would be even better if I turned on the microphone. I'm going to preach really on one verse. And the reading from Mark. For those who want to save their life will lose it. And those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. Where are we at as a congregation? Here's the good news. We are fulfilling our calling as a congregation. The market and the cafe are a marvellous ministry. The things we support, like Wabi and West Sides, are wonderful ministries. I was down here on Thursday. Our place was humming. West Siders was in full swing. There were 2 people ironing out there in the market. There were people in and out buying stuff. She was hopping. Right? What a delight to be here on a day like that. And Fridays and Sundays are great days too. And we are a safe place. In my experience, this church is a place that's remarkably free of malice and ill will. Now, I know we've got our foibles and our shortcomings. But I tell you, some of my colleagues look at this place and, frankly, they're jealous. I am incredibly blessed as a minister to be the minister of this congregation. It's a wonderful place. That's the good news. The bad news. Well, we've got this year in the budget a $9,000 deficit, which in round figures means that each week, just to keep doing what we're doing, and we're not actually wasting money. Audrey doesn't like the candles with $5 notes, right? Each week we're spending $200 more than we're receiving. What that means is if we run with this year's budget and we do it the same next year, we'll be broke. We won't be able to pay our bills. But there's more bad news than that. I don't think I'm telling you anything that you don't know here. As well as a money deficit, we have a time and energy deficit. There's a whole bunch of folk here who need to do less if they're going to stay healthy and not get sick as they get older. I discovered a little typo here. When you get your copy of the sermon and the document we looked at in council, it's going to say to keep going and get sick. Well, that's what's going to happen unless we deal not only with the financial deficit, but also deal with the time and energy deficit. So really, to start breaking even, we have to save money and we have to stop doing some stuff. Otherwise, we're going to crash and burn. I'll give you a good example. Leslie's trying to run the op shop out there. Leslie has to get a job. The op shop is probably 2 to 3 days full-time a week, especially if you're not someone who's had years of running a business experience like Hare did. We can't ask Leslie to run the market. It's just not doable. The big trap for congregations when they get to our spot, it's what they do over and over again. They think, we've got to save money. So we trim a bit off here, we trim a bit off there, and we trim some off there, and we get Max and Robbie, you can't go back to Thailand. We need you to wash the floors and clean the toilets and cook tea on Friday nights. We load people up some more, and we keep trying to do what we're already doing, and we don't address the underlying problems. Maybe we save a bit of money, but we still slowly go downhill and we peter out. And in the end, all of those congregations die with a bad taste in their mouth, die with regret. And we are one of those congregations, I have to tell you this quite frankly, unless something changes here, we are going to die. Within 5 years, we'll be dead. So we have to deal with our money issue for sure, but we also have to significantly change how we do church and how we are church if we wish to survive rather than fade out with a whimper. And that's where the verse that I quoted before applies to us. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who want to lose their life for my sake and the sake of the gospel will save it. If we will not let go of what we are doing, if we're not prepared to die, that means to lose some of our treasured things and our treasured ways of doing things, then we will die. I've seen that happen. And if we want to have any time to start doing something new, not only have we got to get rid of the money deficit and get rid of the time deficit, then we've actually got to stop doing some of the things that we're doing to make room to do anything new. We need to do that because in very, very blunt terms, what we are doing is not working. What we are doing is serving and loving the community. But it is not gaining us any people who are joining with us in the leadership of this community. Understand the difference? John has a whole host of helpers and partners. But our leadership group, that's us all, right? Our leadership group is fading away. We're all getting older. Even Wes has cracked his whole century. So we have to change how we are doing church, because the way we do church is not allowing or not enabling enough people to join us to continue our ministry of service and love. Understand what I'm saying here. I'm not in the least criticising what we do. We have a fantastic ministry. But you can see there's this one problem, and that we're not replacing this. Now actually, I'm not telling any of you a thing. Maybe the visitors from Sydney, right? Maybe the visitors. But I'm not telling the rest of you anything that's not glaringly obvious to all of us. The problem for us is to know, yeah, great, we know all that, Andrew, how do we do anything about it? Really? Shame Robbie to his seat and don't need to go back. We have to move first. We can't wait for something to happen. In our situation, there are no quiet nights. It's no good saying, for example, well, maybe we can share the building. And so we'll say to John and Andrew, go off and see if you can find a uniting care agency or another congregation who will come and share the building with us. And when you come back, if you find one, we'll sit down and we'll think about how we might be able to do that. And we'll have an argument with Raylene because she wants to do it this way, and Max because he wants to do it that way, and it's no good doing that because by then they're going to be gone. We have to be ready. We have to move first. We have to step into a new thing without knowing what the outcome might be. And that's why we read the story of Abraham, who became our father in the faith. Because here's this guy, and what the rabbis have noticed, I hadn't noticed this before, what the rabbis have noticed is that Abraham sets out and he doesn't know where he's going. Right? we've heard the story forever and ever, he's going to Canaan. But it actually says he bets the farm on it, you know, packs up the whole family, packs up all his gear, and off he goes. But it's only after he's got to Canaan that God says, this is the place. That's us. That's what we have to do. We have to step out in faith first. And it's an interesting thing, when they look, the rabbis, when they look at these words, go forth, they say, at their simplest, they translate as travel in order to transform yourself, create yourself anew. In fact, if you get it down to the real guts of it, it says, travel to yourself. Perhaps even to an unimagined self. We will find ourselves by heading out for a future that we can't yet see. We have to be prepared to change then and not to make cosmetic changes. Point out here that Abraham was 75, right? Age isn't the issue. The issue is, are we going to move? I said to the council that we've been talking about this stuff. I said at the last meeting, the problem that most people's change, the reason that most people's change doesn't do anything when they try and do something new is it's not new enough. We start a new program, we shuffle things around, let's change the service to 11 o'clock instead of 10 o'clock because that will let the really old people like me only get here a bit easier. But really, what does that do? Well, maybe it does help me only get there easier. Frankly, I don't want church at 11 o'clock. Because then by the time I get home, right? Well, it's just, really what it is, it's just window dressing. It's nothing significant. If we change the service to 11 o'clock back down, it's still us, it's still all the same. If we save ourselves by not changing significantly enough, we will lose our life. And change can be hard. One of the reasons we don't change enough is because people are scared. Who can blame us? We get scared in particular because somebody like him says, oh, well, I'm not in favour. If you do that, I'm going to leave and I'm going to take my pledge with me. And he steps on the camera, right? Well, let's remember how we got to here and why we're here. We're here because we've kind of in a bit of a balance where we all like this place, or at least we can put up with it. But how did we get here? We got here by changing. And each time we change, somebody gets upset, this person, and leaves. We're still here. Somebody else can't be held to ransom. If we save ourselves because we're scared of change or what somebody might say, then we will lose our life. And that means that we'll have to change. All of this means we'll have to change so much that we will feel like we're dying. It means that everything is up for grabs. Everything from do we keep the photocopier to do we keep the minister? Everything. Could you show this slide up for me, Wes, please? In fact, you can show the camera on the screen if you like. So these are some of the things. Do we continue to worship based around the lectionary? Or, sorry, Brent, I stepped over here so I wouldn't be in your way, and I'm trying your foot. Or do we work our worship on another basis? What hours will the minister work? And when? And at what? Do you know what the minister does? What will be the hours the office and the building are open? Do we close the market because we don't have enough staff? We don't. It's not just a question of Leslie. We don't have enough dawns and and who was with you, Dawn? Kath on Thursday. Do we upgrade the market? And someone said, hang on, we haven't got enough staff to start with, and that's true. But all questions, all ideas should be on the table. No questions are out of bounds. When do we do the cafe? How often do we do the cafe? Do we change how we do the cafe? Do we keep the cafe? Do we expand the cafe? How do we do that? When do we have Sunday lunches? And how many Sunday lunches? And where are the Sunday lunches going to be at? In the hall? Like they are now? Out the back? In here? How do we do our lunches? Barbecue? Potluck? When do we worship? Here's one that worries people. What day of the week do we worship? And you were worried I might change worship to 11 o'clock. Where do we worship in the building? This isn't the only room in the house. Do we keep the pews? What do we do about music and musicians? Do we keep running a church office? How many churches in the world do you think have a church office? Anyone like to guess at a percentage?
About 50%.
About 50%. Well, I reckon you're optimistic. I've got no idea, but you've got the right idea. You don't need an office to run a church. Do we stop having coffee before church? Or do we actually have breakfast at church? Some places do. Hey, it's good. I put on a good church breakfast. Do we invite Elaine Care to take over the office and hall Monday to Friday and then make it their space? What will be the time and the frequency and the style and the if of Bible study? Do we form a partnership with another congregation so that they worship Sunday? This is their space, all day Sunday. And we worship Friday or some other day. Do we combine with another congregation? Would it matter if they were not uniting church? Would it matter if they were black? Would it matter if it was a Muslim group? We have to be prepared to change everything. We think about it and we be wise about it, but everything's up for grabs. Here's the question. All of us will have to change something. So, if we change from a little congregation that's fading away and going to die, and we become a congregation that survives, we can bring it back to me as if we finished there, then what we're going to do is going to upset you, right? We're going to do something that you don't agree with, that might get under your skin or might get way up your nose, okay? We're going to do the same for you, and for you, and for Phil, and for Coral, and for Chris back there. She can get away with it because she doesn't have to come so often, right? But you know what I'm saying? We all have to change, including the minister. Sorry, did someone say something? No, it was a cough.
Yes.
So, if we save ourselves because we're scared of change, we die. If we save our life because we make some things sacred, like little gods, we will lose our life. And if we say we can't possibly get rid of that communion rail, you can do anything else, but we can't touch the communion rail, then who is God in the Hare Street Church? I'll tell you, the communion rail is God. And then there's something else we need to ask ourselves. Do we really want to grow? with all the pain and discomfort that might cause along with the joy. Do we really want to end up in a situation where, in not very long, we might be the minority in the middle of a whole bunch of newcomers who don't know what it is to be the church over history? That's a tough question for you people who have been here 40 years. It's a tough question for the minister, because they might want to do stuff the way I don't like it. Or do we really? This is what's really going on sometimes with churches. Is what we really want just to get a few extra people to balance the budget so that we can keep on being the same wonderful, lovely, comfortable church that we are? Wouldn't that be understandable, because it's a good church? But that's actually not changing anything. And it's critically important to understand that that's not changing anything. Let me tell you an example to make this point, okay? And you'll see that this is, Audrey's printed a copy of everything for us today, and you see on the back of it says, an imagining. And then it says, and I think it had a yellow highlight on it, this is imagining, it's not a suggestion, okay? Might turn out to be a thing to do, but it's not a suggestion. But in that imagining, what we're imagining is that there's been a group somewhere that we've got to know, we've liked them, and we've gone into a partnership with them. And what happens is that this is their space on Sunday, this is their church on Sunday, and they actually use the place on Wednesday afternoons, sorry about that, we shifted Bible study, Wednesday night, and they also use it Thursday morning. Large congregation, 120 people, lots of kids, had to build a fence out the front, right? And they're paying 70% of the running costs of this place. Okay. Financial problems solved. What happens is that on Friday nights at 4:30, there's prayers in here for anyone who's on kitchen who wants to come in and have prayers. And whilst he's running, at 6 o'clock, there's a short Eucharist for anyone who wants to come, from the guests and from us, and some of us do. And the minister runs that. And then at 7:30, there's Bible study. Come homily, sermon sort of thing, you see. Maybe a prayer. And then at 8 o'clock, that's concluded with another Eucharist, and some people come and some people don't. And it's wonderful. I think, well, we should have done this a decade ago. This is wonderful. And Glennis and David come down one weekend and they're like, are we in the same church? This is great. But do you know what? We could do all of that, and we could think, see, we nailed it. We did what Andrew said, we changed everything. And it could actually be that nothing had changed, because the same people who are involved are us. And if it's just us, it's going to die, because we're getting older. And once we're not sort of conquered out and falling off our chairs in a great way, right, we're getting to the limits of what we can do, and in fact we're needing to scale back. We need to change enough to grow. And if we won't die to what it takes to grow, then we will lose our life. Then we think, what if it doesn't work? What you're saying is we have to step out of the sort of harebrained idea that we're going to dream up. Not quite saying that. But we do need to get a vision, that we find a vision, the place where we think God is taking us, And we need to step out not knowing whether or not we're going to get there, just like Abraham. We need to die to what we've got. What if it doesn't work? How do you know that we're going to get there? How do you know it's going to work? In the book of Jonah, this is from Rabbi Avinu Zornberg. In the book of Jonah, the sailors say to Jonah, pray to your God and perhaps he will relent and the storm will stop. Just perhaps. They know there's no certainty. And then when Jonah finally, the whale has the fur ball and Jonah gets coughed up on the beach and thinks this time he better do as he's told, and he goes off and he says in 40 days God will destroy this place, and the king tells everybody to repent, and he says perhaps. But he doesn't say perhaps. What's the word he used? Who knows? Who knows? God might relent. And she says it's a peculiarly Jewish response to the mystery of God's ways. When Moses strives to atone for the people of Israel, he says to them, perhaps I'll win forgiveness for your sin. And then John says, perhaps, who knows? Right, who knows? But God may turn and relent. There is no certainty. All we can do is go in the hope and in the knowledge of God's loving mercy to us. What we do know, what is certain is, if we save ourselves from the uncertainty of changes, if we save ourselves from the uncertainty of not knowing, if we save ourselves because what we do might work, if we save ourselves because there's no certainty or guaranteed outcome, if we stick with what we know, we will lose our life. We will die. So we've got to step out of our comfort zone, stand in the way of the Spirit and see what helps us. We're already starting to do stuff to save money, but we need to be on the way to fundamental changes within 12 months that we've seen. The good news in all of this is a long sermon, but this is important, okay? It'll be on a website. Wes has got the camera on me, and you'll have the printed thing. Show people the church website. Important. The good news is we are in a good place to do this. We are an open and affirming congregation. We do things here, we've changed things here that in many places would just get a flat no. We've changed before, we know how to change. That's the good news. But we are, I think, coming on from the discussion we had at council, I think fundamentally we have to desire to grow, to actually grow. And mate, that is an idea that's got whiskers on it. It really has. To begin with, I'm scared of big congregations. I don't know how to do big congregations. I don't even know how to do growing congregations. I've never been in one. Actually, I was, as a student, I was in one, and I didn't like what they were doing. Barely know where to start. The other thing we've got to do is we've got to avoid strategies which are about turning people into bums on seats. Right? Because as soon as I go around the corner with Max with free sausages, trying to get people to come in from the car wash because we want to have more people here so that we can get more money in the plate so that Wes can balance the books. That's what some churches sound like they're about. As soon as we do that, we have turned those people into objects. We have changed them from people into the means to an end. That is such a failure of church. I would rather die than do that. Somehow we have to have a vision where we can honestly go to a person and say, mate, you have some real skills, some real gifts, you love God, you're looking for God. Can you see a way that you can fit into this vision here and grow with us, which is a different thing. And sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between those two things. But we've got to do it. Okay, it's Lent. It's a time for reassessment, thinking about ourselves, working out where we're going. I'm going to ask you please pray for the church council as it talks about these things and prays about these things. Pray for me. I'm scared, honestly. We'll keep you posted, but we need your prayers. Talk to the council. Tell them what you think. Encourage them. Share your fears and your reservations, for sure. But tell them and encourage them. I love the way June came up to me once when we first put that little camera down here. She said, I'm really uncomfortable about that camera there. Honesty, good stuff. Feedback, good stuff. And then she said, but let's see how it works out. Encourage them. Good stuff. Okay? And we need to hear your ideas, even if they're crazy. Understand, we might get 1,000 ideas and only one of them's going to work. So don't be offended if we said, well, no, I don't think that'll work, we've already thought about it. But we can look at a problem over and over and over again and not see it. One of my friends was telling me she could strip everything out of her kitchen and she finally came up with a plan. All she had to do was remember the taps were there and the window was there. And she had a plan. It was the best she could come up with. And the builder came in and looked at it, and he looked at the room and he said, why don't you do this? And he came up with this brilliant plan for her kitchen that had never even occurred to her. So you may have an idea that is the saving of this place. So please tell us. But try and be encouraging. And finally, I'm going to finish. I am confident of our calling. I am confident that God would have us in this place. I am confident that God would have this place go on so that every last one of us here today can grow old and can die here and be buried from here if we want to. And I'm confident that God would have this place go on long after we've gone. And I'm confident of something else that relates back to that verse. I am confident that if we step out on a new vision and it just absolutely does not work, and we're here in this same place, minus 1 or 2 people in 3 years' time having our last service, I am confident that even then we will be in a much better place.